Thank you for joining us. My name is Violet Luxton, and I'm a fellow with the Center for Academic and Faculty Excellence. And can everybody or someone give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? All right. Oh, wow. That's great. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm guessing that because you're all here today, you want to learn something about Zotero, which is a reference management software. And really, anything we do in scholarship, best practice is always cite your sources. And more than that, understand the genealogy or the lineage of those sources. So, a big part of academia is being cited and understanding who you cited, and kind of that knowledge community. And so, we're going to look at the sustainability of those practices, because now we're in a digital age and an age of AI. And so it's not as easy as writing down the Chicago style or APA or MLA citation style. And yes, this will be recorded. John Edward, thanks for asking. Um, and so it's not as simple as writing down the citation style. It is actually a digital process many of us use, and that takes energy. And so we're going to understand kind of the sustainability side of our scholarship and what we do. And just for those of you that are coming in, this webinar will be recorded. And I'm going to turn on the captions also for anybody that needs it. And again, my name is Violet Luxton. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a fellow with the Center for Academic and Faculty Excellence. And I'm really happy you're here today. Any questions about anything before we start the presentation? Is my volume okay? Just give me a thumbs up if you can't hear anything or, oh, great. Okay, cool. Awesome. And yeah, if you want, you can use the chat to drop in kind of why you came today, but we're also going to do a Mentimeter exercise. So I'm going to share my screen now. And go into present mode. Okay, great. So again, Zotero, zero waste. Zotero is a reference management software, but it also is really great for avoiding e-waste or scholarly waste in terms of energy consumption in the scholarship we do. And that can be as simple as sending emails with PDFs to your students. Every time you send an email that has a PDF or a Word document to your students or to your friends, that takes energy and that takes data. And so Zotero houses this information in a cloud sharing format that is less data intensive and less energy consuming. And so we're going to learn a little bit more about how to be good environmental stewards as well as good critical scholars in this webinar. But just start thinking about why you came today and your level of comfortability with Zotero. And just to kind of frame the conversation today, many folks think of research as perhaps something you do to learn about climate equity, environmental analysis, understanding pollution. But we're thinking of research as a climate equity practice. So in addition to studying the environment, how can everything that we study, the act of reading, research, and scholarship itself, be an act of climate and equity practice? And Zotero is one infrastructure that can help us do that for some of the reasons I listed, in terms of it houses the data and it avoids waste in terms of emailing documents back and forth. and for the ways that it can allow us to track our citations and just be more efficient scholars. Okay, so this is going to be a Mentimeter activity, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat. But if you go to Mentimeter, the website menti.com, and you enter the code 54959487, we're going to have a quick Mentimeter exercise. So please join me. And I'm going to drop the code in the chat and the website in the chat as well. Really quick here. And I hope everybody's used Mentimeter before. I'm going to stop sharing briefly. If anybody has any trouble with Mentimeter, just raise your hand and let me know. But I'm going to drop the information in the chat here. So you can follow this link in the chat. And you can use this code I'm going to drop in to answer the following questions. And I'm going to reshare my screen. Okay, great. Good to see some folks already using the Mentimeter. So just a quick question so we can kind of see each other's ideas here. Why do you think sustainability belongs in research management? I gave some examples, but I see access, I see prospective, less energy use, ensure long-term impact. I like that. And this word cloud is just one way to kind of see how often folks are using something. So if a word is larger, it means more people are referencing it. But everything's about the same. So less energy use, that's great. I like that. To honor, to bring integrity to what we do. All right, that's great. Really like that. So all of these kind of encapsulate the scholarly process. Long term, if there's no planet where it's really hard to do long-term research if you don't have freedom from necessity or, you know, a planet to do the research on. So that's one way. Access, we want to make sure things are accessible for as many people for as long as possible, and research management software really opens up access. And less energy use. I love that. Okay, cool. So now we're going to switch. I just want to know what's everybody's level of comfortability with Zotero? Are you coming in? And feel free to use the chat also. Are you coming in having used Zotero before? This is more of an advanced webinar, just as an FYI. But if most folks don't have any degree of comfort level, we can start at the basics, which is how to download, etc. So I'm just curious how folks are enjoying Zotero. I'm just checking the chat. Okay, I see, Grant, you've used it for about 3 years. That's really great. All right, Reese, you use it and came to find something you don't know. Okay, Martha, just getting started. Adam installed but never really used. Okay. Great. Ken, I use it very often and the basic functions. Okay, Keith, never used it before and more than 3 years, never used it. All right. Saw a webinar 3 years ago. Okay, good. That's actually how I got into Zotero, was through a webinar. So I really like these cafe webinars. I have been using it for about 3 years as well. And I started using it from a cafe webinar. And it's changed my scholarship. It's changed the way I cite and just made things a lot easier to create bibliographies, to share bibliographies, and to cite things that might be a little new to scholarship, like emails, YouTube videos, TikTok. Really helps just keep you up to date on citation styles. So glad to see folks are have some comfort level, and then some folks here are pretty advanced. Okay. And then my last question is kind of, what are you looking to get? Which of these seems to fit most of your teaching needs? If everybody wants kind of the same thing, then we can focus on that in our webinar today. And for those of you who are new, don't worry if none of this makes sense. I can go over it in more detail, and yeah, we can meet you wherever you are, whatever level you're working with Zotero. Just curious, yeah, what folks are thinking. And feel free to drop it in the chat also if one stands out to you. Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. So it seems like a lot of folks really want auto-updating reading lists. I really like that. Tools for detecting citation over concentration. That's a big equity concern. If you're finding all of your citations are from men or from privileged groups, let's say, you can really work to bring in equity. If you're trying to look for first-gen scholars or scholars from a marginalized background, the citation over concentration is a really good way that you're building a diverse array of knowledge and scholarship. And it's kind of a tool to study itself. Like, this is Zotero's method of detecting citation over concentration. If any of you are interested in the digital humanities, pedagogy, teacher education, you can do a study of how these reference management softwares, which are companies, create citation over concentration detecting tools, and you can kind of critique those. Okay, sync with Canvas, Moodle, Google Classroom. So a lot of like pedagogy, and then accessibility. Okay, cool. Yeah. Accessibility is really important. I know Canvas has features built in if you are using an LMS. So I could see why that might be at the bottom. And let me just check the chat. Yes, syncing with Canvas is really cool. And yes, that would be kind of putting an HTML into Canvas. Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you all. That was really helpful. Just going to go back to my presentation now. Does anybody have any questions so far? All right. Well, thank you for taking part in that exercise. That was really cool. And I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay. So as I mentioned, academic workflows do produce waste. They do use energy. And part of that is if you don't know necessarily how to use AI, or you don't have lists or libraries or bibliographies that are easily accessible, you might perform a lot of Google searches, which isn't the most scholarly way of performing searches, you definitely want to learn how to perform searches through the academic library databases first and foremost. And you might be using tools that aren't necessarily designed to help you find what you're looking for. They might be designed to keep you engaged in those tools because companies like Google or Meta or OpenAI get paid and generate wealth by your engagement, which is why sometimes I don't know if anybody's heard of unaliving with AI. Like some folks, the actual number one use of AI right now is for therapy. Most of the questions going to ChatGPT are about therapy. And ChatGPT is designed to keep people engaged. So some of the answers it gave didn't actually direct people with mental health needs to help. It kept them engaged with the chatbot, and so some folks lost their life even because the software isn't necessarily our best friend at the moment. And so it can do amazing things and it can really drastically improve how you perform scholarship. But if you're not organized, it's going to prompt you to engage with it as much as possible, which means it's going to keep you talking, keep you searching, keep you responding to prompts. And that is what increases the carbon footprint. And I'll go into a little bit about why. So sustainable scholarship isn't just engaging with tools. It's about being intentional and critical and transparent and collaborative. And that's kind of what we're going to get into a little more today. And I'm just going to pause and see if anybody has any questions or comments about their engagement with digital tools so far. Okay, we can keep going. All right. So Zotero has been updating for a long time, and it has a lot of really great tagging. It has areas for annotating, kind of like Evernote. It also has a lot of plugins. So if you are using Google, you can cite the exact website. You can take snapshots of the website itself. So kind of like the Wayback Machine that captures the internet at different stages of time. Zotero will take kind of like a screenshot or a snapshot of the page that you're on and cite it for you. So you can go back and see exactly what was on that page, even if it doesn't exist anymore. So it's just a really great tool to use for all of these things. Metadata extraction, it is AI assisted, and it has really great PDF readers for accessibility and many different tools. Okay, so getting back to the cost. Why is being organized so important? Well, every time you ask a question in Google or in ChatGPT, it consumes about 20 minutes of electricity. And when you multiply that by all of the data centers, that can literally equal 6% of one example of a country's total electricity for the year. And so just like cryptocurrency, all of these computational methods that we're using now, they take up an enormous amount of energy, fresh water, and resources from the environment. And so again, with the case of mental health and asking ChatGPT and then, unaliving yourself, that's an extreme example. But it can also just be as simple as we can't put a lot of strain on our energy grid and we want to be more mindful and responsible consumers. We don't want to be asking Google like 27 different questions that ends up using a lot of water and electricity when we could just ask one really intentional, critical question to get us where we want to go. And water. So again, every time you ask ChatGPT a question, it's like just dumping out a bottle of water. And so a lot of times when we're at our computer, we don't necessarily think of energy consumption in those terms. And there is another webinar that Cafe did where I talk about exactly the environmental and sustainable costs of AI. So if you're curious, just go through our past webinars. But this is just kind of a really quick recap just to understand the material costs. So when we're talking about Zotero to zero waste, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about using less water. Oftentimes, these data centers require fresh water, very pristine drinking water because of all of the parts, the intricate parts and circuit boards. They can't have reclaimed water or salt water, other things like that. So we're competing with drinking water, which is really important. So these are just some of the material costs that go into our energy consumption. Okay, so again, rather than like sending an email with Word documents or PDFs every week in your class, um, having something loaded in LMS like Canvas or sharing a Zotero library that you update regularly is one way that you can download a source one time onto your library in Zotero and then share it multiple times, but it's housed in Zotero. So you're not necessarily making infinite digital copies that use energy and then sharing those. Additionally, files, the more you share, the more tiny names are tacked on to the files. And so eventually those names get so long, it makes retrieving and sending and accessing those files over time much more difficult, and they're subject to degrade. And so it's just good data hygiene. And I believe we talked about long-term integrity, honor, kind of going back to those words in the word cloud in the beginning. If we want our scholarship to last, having good metadata hygiene and good naming conventions and just good practices of capturing and circulating data, this is what Zotero can help with. So it has plugins. Again, I mentioned the Google plugin. It has classroom integrations. It has something called groups, where you can share libraries with each other. And that's really important because as scholars of learning and literacy know, uh, knowledge production is a collective act. And the more we can produce knowledge collaboratively, the sharper our critical skills become. And so instead of being isolated and kind of having all of these lists that really just end up taking up space on your computer, sharing our libraries and sharing our knowledge is a part of equity, a part of collaboration, and really breeds diversity into our scholarly practice. And then if you are using Canvas, there's classroom integrations and a lot of different ways that you can share files and minimize how often you duplicate things. And I'm just going to pause here and see if anybody has any questions about anything so far. If so, just raise your hand, but I'm not seeing any, so okay. So I'm gonna go into the groups in a little bit, but before we kind of get into how to sync with Canvas and maybe create student learning outcomes in Zotero folders or accessible web bibliographies, I want to get into a exercise, a group exercise. So take a minute and I'm going to drop the links in the chat, but feel free to copy them down. And they're going to take you to a resource folder. And I'm going to drop in the slides from this webinar and all of the resources we go over. So you're welcome to share it and talk about it and email me later if you have any questions. But feel free to go to this resource folder, and then I'm going to walk us through an exercise and put us into breakout rooms so that we can kind of explore a little bit about what Zotero can do together, and then we're going to share out as a group. So I'm just going to stop sharing here. And I'm going to drop in the links to our resource folder. And feel free to let me know. Okay, Keith, no problem. There's enough of us that if, folks are driving or are not able to read, that is completely fine. But we're going to break up into 3 groups. Those are the bit.ly links. One goes to the document and one goes to the resource folder. And just a quick breakdown here of what we're going to do. I'm going to share my screen. So we have 3 different readings that get at the main abilities of Zotero for educators and academics. We have Puckett, we have the Canadian Historical Association, and we have Velazquez, who's more associated with environmental waste reduction in the classroom. So if you're into kind of reducing waste from an environmental analysis perspective, you might want to join group 3. If you are interested in like history and citation and humanities, that you might want to join group 2. And if you kind of just want a general breakdown of what Zotero does and how it can be used in the classroom, you might want to join group 1. But I'm going to allow everybody to choose their own breakout rooms. And the only caveat is choose a scribe, and the scribe is going to answer the questions where it says insert response here. So just feel free to jump in the document and start typing just like I'm doing there. And we'll fill up this table, and this will be available to all of us so we can all kind of maximize the readings and what we're learning. We can comment in this document later on after we've implemented some of these techniques and learn from each other. Each of these has a handout that kind of walks you through different skills that you might want to pick up. But just start with the first question here. I'm going to give us about 10 minutes to just kind of skim through the readings together, and then we'll share out for a little bit. So just start with the very first question I'm going to highlight. And again, I'm going to break us up into breakout rooms. You're welcome to join your own room. Just answer the very first question in either group 1, 2, or 3. And all of the readings can be found in this resource folder here. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and just see if anybody has any questions while I make the breakout rooms. Okay, and room 1 is group 1, room 2 is group 2, and room 3 is group 3. So I am opening all the rooms, and you should be able to join any room you want. And then if there's folks who are unsure, I can assign you to a room. Cool. So I see some folks. If nobody wants to be in group 2 or 3, if everybody really likes one reading, that's completely fine. So just go where your interest and your passion is kind of leading you. And I'm going to put 10 minutes. And just start reading. Just go through the readings, start exploring. This is really cool. It lets you broadcast your voice to all the breakout rooms. So I hope you're introducing yourselves, getting to know each other very briefly. And we're just going to take 10 minutes to read the readings. You can read it together, you can read it by yourself. Um, and then I'll give you 5 minutes to kind of discuss as a group before you share out with all of us. Okay? Oh, wow. Everybody is joining group one. That is interesting. Okay, Alejandra, do you want to talk with me a little bit or
No,
do you want to do
I didn't get the choice to join one of the groups. I know it usually pops up on the screen like, but I don't have that option for some reason.
Oh, no problem. Do you want me to assign you to group one?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Yeah,
my pleasure.
I didn't get the option. Okay.
No problem. I'm going to pop you in there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There it goes. I'm sorry. I had to leave the room. This is Alejandra again.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, yeah, my daughter called me from school and I have to go pick her up. I'm so
Oh, no
sorry.
problem. No problem. If you have any questions, feel free to email me and we can do a one-on-one or just get some basics or whatever you're
Right.
looking for with Zotero. So no worries there.
Okay, can I get your first and last name? I know it was at the beginning of the slides. Well, I think
Sure.
it's in the oh my God, confirmation for the registration, right?
It is, and I'm going to send out an email at the end to everybody that registered. And so you're welcome to email me if you have any questions or just want any help getting started with groups or
I
anything that,
appreciate it. I'm going to
yeah.
be viewing the videos from the library and I'm going to, so I was reading this guy right now. So will we have access to the link you provided for a while? Because I
Oh,
noticed
yeah,
you have
forever.
really good resources.
Definitely. And I'm going to make a Zotero group and give you access to that library. So
Mhm.
we can have a shared Zotero library, all of us together. But it'll be on the Google Drive also, just
Okay.
indefinitely.
I appreciate it. And yeah, I would
Of
reach out if
course.
I need to after I got on, through everything on my own and start working on it. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you very
Sounds good.
much.
Yeah. Take
Have a
care.
great evening. Bye bye.
You too. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for participating on the document. Welcome.
Violet,
I know that,
which one do
yeah,
we write on?
the Google Doc. So let me share my screen here. So I see some
The ch-
folks are writing on this group one. You just write right in here. So it looks like folks wrote a little bit
what's it called?
in this area, this first row.
Okay.
All right. So thank you, everybody. Yeah, does anybody kind of want to share a little bit about what questions they have or what they talked about or anything at all? Okay, I noticed Reese had a question about kind of where to put thoughts and responses. Um, and so you can drop it in. I saw a couple people writing in this area right here. I'm going to not highlight that since nobody was in group 1 or 3. And right here, so it looks like folks said using a group library for a class could allow multiple students to access the same source, collaborate, and kind of explain what Zotero is and how it can be used in comparison to other bibliographic management tools and reference managers. And so that's a great question. Um, and I encourage folks to check out some of our earlier cafe videos that go into more of the basics of Zotero, kind of how it differs from Evernote or other types of reference management software. And in a nutshell, it just has a lot of interoperability. So, different platforms it's compatible with, different plugins, like it has a Google plugin. And so that interoperability is really important. It's also free for a certain amount of data. So that's another thing if cost is a concern. It's not completely free. So once you get, past a certain amount of gigabytes, you will need to pay. So keep that in mind if it's something that you want to use long term. Maybe you might want to use like some conference money or budget for this. Or maybe you might not want to use Zotero, but from what I found, it is one of the best ways to kind of operate with Canvas and with Microsoft and other types of softwares, Apple, everything that kind of makes it easier to share with a wider audience. Um, and then I'm seeing capturing while you read, not after, which is really, really great in that respect. It annotates very much like Adobe PDF. Um, Never retype titles, all of that. Yeah, chasing links at 2 a.m. That's exactly what it's really good for. And I made a library for this class. So hopefully you'll never have to chase some of the links if you want to use any of the materials. And then tag ruthlessly. I really like that. Tags, for those of you who may not be familiar, every time you tag something, you can type in that tag and then everything that has that label will come up. So it's another way, kind of like Obsidian, is another tool that allows you to make webs of categories and tag different items. Zotero allows you to do that also. And then snap the web page. Again, that's really helped me because I could be offline and I can read the whole web page without being online. Yeah, any questions before we do some demonstrations of some of these? Okay, cool. So for the sake of time, I did put a handout hyperlinked in the document of everything that was in the slides that you can do with Zotero. So I encourage you to try at least one or two of those things that you're most passionate about. But for the sake of time today, folks mentioned groups and sharing libraries, which can be uploaded into Canvas. I believe folks also mentioned self-updating, auto-updating citations and sources. So we can play around with that in the last little bit of time that we have. And I just want to go for folks that are completely new to Zotero. Let me just put in the link. It's really easy, zotero.org. So I'm just going to drop it into the chat really quickly here. You can go there, you can download Zotero, and this is what you'll see if you do go to Zotero.com. Again, it's free to download. It's Mac, Windows, Linux operable, so that's why I like it. So here you go. You're going to see this. You're going to press download. I did it. I tested it out again today and downloaded it on this computer, which isn't my main computer. And I was able to do it in 5 minutes. Then what you're going to see when you do that is I have a library on a completely different computer. But I typed in my login information, which is an email and password, and my entire library, just to show you, auto-populated. So this is my library. A really wonderful feature for those of us who are trying to understand like qualifying exams. It will have all of your sources by date. So let's say you're doing a cultural studies qualifying exam and you want to understand how the field changed from the 60s to the 90s to the 2000s to today. You can go and look chronologically by all of your sources. You could go by century. You can go by pivotal years, like 1968 was a really pivotal year. 1860s, really pivotal time around the globe. And so you can see some of my sources here. And just all of my interests. I have syllabi that I really enjoy, conferences that I've been to, just different things like that. And then, so this is what, obviously, if you do not have a library yet, it'll just be blank. And so let's go. Web library is how you access it, which is what you're seeing. This is my web library. So if you want to access it from a computer that's not a computer that you own, like from school, you're going to go to web library. And that's what you're seeing now, even though it's also downloaded on my desktop, which I just did for you all before class. So you can access it online. You can access it on your desktop. Changes that you make on your desktop will sync. And so let's make a group just to test it out. And you can watch a little bit about groups. I'm going to share the slideshow. There's a video linked in the slideshow. But you're just going to go to create a new group. So let's say you have a class. I'm going to call it Cafe Z for Cafe Center for Academic and Faculty Excellence, and Z for Zotero. So that's going to be our group, Cafe Z. And then I'm going to choose whether I want it to be private, kind of like a Google Doc. If you want it private, public, but closed, so you can choose, or public open. So I'm just going to make this open for all of us at the moment. And then you can, again, choose your settings. If this is for a class that you want private, you could do only group members can edit. If you're a professor and you want to do peer review, sometimes Canvas can be challenging for doing peer review, even though it has a peer review feature. Zotero allows you to do group projects, group feedback, group editing that's not on Google. It's protected. You can put it into your Canvas so that there is the two-way authentication. You can judge who can download, who can comment, who can edit, all of those things. I'm just going to make this open because this is just a test. And then you're going to save the settings. And your group has been made. And so now I'm going to go to my Zotero, and I'll show you where the group is and how to share it. And is anybody following along with their Zotero right now? I'm just curious. Let me know if I'm going too fast for anyone.
I'm following along.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you, Reese. Okay. So now you can go to your library and let me show you how I did that. It'll automatically populate in your library. So I just went to my web library. Here's my group. And there's Cafe Z. And it says who's in it. There's one member at the moment. And then you can manage members, you can manage your library, you can manage your profile. You can write a description, a discipline. You can choose an image. So if you have like a class, you can have a different group for each class. Let's say you're in Cafe 530, which some of you I know are in. And then you can share, you can delete. All of these settings are available. And if there's any last minute questions, I know we're running up against time here. Why don't you drop in the chat any lingering things that you really want to know? And if there's anything that isn't in the handout or you're still curious about, I'm going to send an email following this webinar, and I'll put a how-to or some resources particularly on that thing. So I really appreciate everybody joining me. And it's very intuitive. So I see some of you are beginners. It is a very intuitive software. So just start tinkering around. There's a plugin library. There's a lot of really great resources that are available. And I'm always here. So Cafe is always here. Part of what we do at Cafe is just train you to be good scholars, good educators, good scholar teachers. And so I just really want to thank you for joining me today. And I'm just going to share my last slide about Cafe. So we do teaching certificates that can go on your transcripts that show that you have been trained in not only your subject-specific knowledge, but also how to teach that knowledge to kind of fill the gap between teaching and what you've learned. So we have professional certificates and teaching certificates. We have a plethora of webinars. If you're new to Zotero, go watch one of our webinars first, and then email me your questions. And we also have appointments. So if you just want a one-on-one, maybe this just whet your appetite a little bit. do a one-on-one, and you can have an appointment with me or one of our fellows, and we'll walk you through exactly what you want to do with Zotero or any other reference management software that you want to work with. So please, I hope all of you don't be strangers, and continue learning, continue teaching, and continue thinking critically about your scholarship. Any last minute? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Reese. It's always a pleasure to see you in your digital form. Thank you, Mercy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Nausea. Thank you, Grant.
Have a good evening. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you. Hope to talk to you by email and hear more about your scholarship and your interests.
No problem.
Thank you, everyone.